True to my word, I will not make you sit through me summarizing your book. What does the esteemed audience need to know about Disappearing House?
So, Disappearing House is a haunted house story. When we meet our main character, Jack, she is 12 years old. She is 5 years out of a cancer diagnosis, and she is experiencing a degree of anxiety about that. And she's also experiencing what she fears are symptoms of a recurrence. So she has a fall from her bike. She's got some shaky hands, but most importantly, she's worried that she's having a hallucination. And that hallucination is because out of nowhere, a house appears at the cul-de-sac where she rides her bike. And it wasn't there one day, and then the next day it's there. And she becomes kind of transfixed on this house and what it could mean. And she convinces herself and her best friend that if her best friend can see the house, then she thinks there's nothing wrong with me. I'm fine because it's real. It's not something that I'm seeing. Two neighborhood bullies show up and they tease them and they convince them to go into the house, and then they can't get back out. So Hazel, the best friend, and Jack get trapped in the house. And as they journey from room to room full of nightmares, Jack starts to realize that the house exists for a reason, and she is intuitively tied to that, and that until she figures out how to get through it, she will never get back out. And it is also a meditation on trauma and on confronting what trauma does to your life. So some heavy themes, but I think it's still fun.
I absolutely 100% concur. It's extremely fun. And there are some nice little moments that will break off and haunt readers much later. Be just about to go to sleep and they'll think about food with teeth in it. I'm
I was going to say, is it the teeth? It's the teeth, isn't it?
That's pretty creepy.
It's the teeth. Yeah. I really went all in on teeth.
That fear of yours is to accidentally bite into a tooth?
Is that a fear of mine?
Yeah. Is that like a long held fear?
No, I don't have like a tooth thing. I just actually, that's the genesis of that scene is that a friend of mine told me about a nightmare that they had where people were opening like covered dishes on a table, and all it was teeth. And I was like, thank you for that. I'm gonna just tuck that away for future use. But no, I don't have a weird teeth thing.
All these non-novelists walking around with their little psychoses that they share. Oh, thank you. That could have been a whole short story for you, but you're never going to use it, and I'll take it. That's great.
Yeah, I was like, that'll be mine.
So who's the ideal reader for Disappearing House?
Oh, wow, that's a great question. I've never been asked that question. I think that a lot of people will think that it's a cancer book. I feel like I need to full disclosure, like I had cancer. I was diagnosed with cancer when I was 37. So a lot of this book is me, I guess. But I think a lot of people will say it's a cancer book. I don't think it's a cancer book, but I hope that kids who have been through something hard, and what it is, I guess for me, I think that this book is about trauma, and trauma comes from a lot of different places. A friend of mine who went through a completely different experience and was a survivor of childhood abuse, really saw themselves in Jack and what Jack went through. And that's a different experience than a medical disease. And I think that's what I was trying to do. So while I definitely think that people will say it's a cancer book, it's not to me, and it's fine if it is to them. But I feel like I wrote this book for kids who have stared into the abyss and walked away, and found a path back to what feels like the life they used to live. And that can take a lot of different shapes. And I also think that this book is also for kids who have never experienced anything like that at all, because I'm a big believer in the idea that books are both windows and mirrors. So it's a mirror to see yourself. It's a mirror to see your experience reflected, but it's also a window to see what someone else experienced. And I hope that any kid who has had a beautiful and easy and good, wonderful life could read this book and also understand what it's like to be that kind of scared. And I hope that any kid who has been that scared sees themselves as the hero, I guess. Sees themselves as the person who can pick up the sword and, slay the monster, so to speak.
Something you said in the afterword, and I'm going to try and find it since I'm trying to reference an exact quote and not pass it off as an original thought that I had while reading your book. You had talked about this was a book that was never supposed to, yes, this book wasn't supposed to exist. It was supposed to just be a Word doc, a testament to the fact that I got sick and I lived through that storm and I used the only tool I've ever had to figure out how to go on. Why is a middle grade novel the best tool for your experience of having cancer at 37? And what changed that this didn't just become a Word doc?
So these are very good questions. I think middle grade was the best tool for me because it's the place that I'm most comfortable in telling stories. I mean, I could have written a memoir, but it wouldn't be the same. I need some kind of fantastical element, and I feel very, very, very tied to the 10, 11, 12-year-old Allie that used to exist. She still is a very significant voice in my head. So I kind of knew. So also, I mean, I wrote a book of poems about having had cancer called Better Luck Next Year, which was something a friend of mine said to me, which I thought was just brilliant. And I feel like I exercised a lot of what I had been through. And then, I wrote Ghost Girl and I wrote a ghost story, and I knew I wanted to write another scary story for middle grade. And I got really, I'm a big Shirley Jackson fan, and I got really into the idea of writing a haunted house story. And I was like, haunted houses typically are representations of a mental illness. That's typically what they stand for. The house is a diseased mind. And then I had this moment where I was like, well, what if it was a diseased body? And what if you talked about what you've been through? So I think that's why I went in that direction. But as far as why it's not a Word document on my computer, that belongs to my friend, Amber McBride, who is a phenomenal writer and the author of Me Moth and many, many, many more books that are coming out. And she and I share an agent, and we have been friendly, and we were beta reading for each other. I read her stuff and give her notes, and she reads my stuff and gives me notes. And I wrote this book, and I was like, well, I'm not going to do anything with it because it's too personal. It's too, I guess, weird. It's too much, I think. I thought. And so I was texting with Amber, and I mentioned it, and she was like, no, send it to me. And I was like, Amber, no. And she was like, no, send it to me. And I did. And she wrote me back the next day and was like, you need to send this to our agent. You need to send this to our agent. And that was the thing that made me think that maybe this could be a real thing. Maybe the story that I thought was just for me would matter to other people too. Amber gave me that. So yeah, just what she's thanked in the acknowledgments for the reason why this book exists.
Now I have to ask, when you thought it was just for you, never going to see the light of day, were there things in there that had to come out oh, okay, well, this is going to, people are going to read this. So now let me take a few of these things back. Or was it more or less that it survived the translation?
I mean, it's pretty close. I think it was probably a little darker, and it wasn't. I didn't take them out. My brilliant editor was like, "Much, let's dial this back. This is for 8 to 12-year-olds," and I was like, "Okay, fair. That's fair. Like, I mean, they're children. Like, keep your adult nightmares to yourself at some point." So yeah, so I don't think that I took stuff out because again, I just feel like a lot of the voice that I use when I'm writing it's just a very middle grade voice. Like I've written YA, I have, and when we get to the harrowing publishing stories, you'll hear about it. But I felt Jack's voice from the start. So yeah, I didn't have to take too much. It wasn't that it was too, I'm saying it was too personal, but it wasn't that much different than the story that like will exist in the world in a few weeks. I think I thought it was too personal. I think I thought no one wants to read your sad cancer book, Allie. You know, like, and I think that the thing that Amber convinced me was that because I made a point in the manuscript, I only say the word cancer once, and it's not until the end. And it's not a secret because it's on the jacket. Like it's written right on the jacket flap that Jack is 5 years outside of a cancer diagnosis. So it's not a secret. It's just that I wanted it to be about more than one very specific thing. I wanted it to be about, like I said, about trauma and about what it is to stand at the abyss and then not fall in and walk away and learn how to live your life.
It's fascinating to me that even as you're writing this, I assume just for you, there's still a wonderful horror literary device right there, just driving the plot along. Allie, you don't need that for a journal, but there it is. The storyteller all along.
Yep. Horror is good like that.